and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me.
Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Jessica,
And welcome to Nomads.
a podcast about international teaching, travel, and life.
We met in our undergrad music program in Minnesota and are now both international music teachers.
I'm currently teaching for a school in Panama.
And I'm teaching for a school in Shenzhen, China.
However, as of right now, we're both remote teaching from Minnesota.
But, as we mentioned in our last episode, we both have tentative plans to be moving to our new post soon.
So we'll try to keep you updated at the beginning of the upcoming episodes as we learn more.
And if you haven't, don't forget to check out our Instagram and follow us at Nomads Podcast.
And on YouTube, we'd appreciate if you would subscribe and turn on notifications so you get alerted when we upload.
So last week we talked about some of the not so great realities of living in a foreign country.
And this week we have a super special guest, a former colleague of mine from Almaty, Kazakhstan, Mackie.
Good morning. How's it going?
Mackie, where in the world are you?
I live in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Oh, West of what?
West of Mongolia.
Oh, okay. That's how you describe it.
Yeah, that's people know where Mongolia is. They don't know where Kazakhstan is.
Yeah, borders China, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Before we just bombard you with a bunch of questions, do you want to just give as quick as possible overview of your experience with, I guess, mainly the cruise ship stuff and other international teaching experience?
A brief, okay.
As brief as Mackie can.
Like your CV.
Okay.
Your cover letter.
Okay, so I always wanted to live overseas. In high school, you needed the grades, which I didn't have. In university, you needed the money, which I didn't have. And so when I graduated from university, I met this friend who was researching for the JET program with the Japanese embassy. And it was a teacher exchange program where you went overseas and you were an assistant language teacher to Japanese teachers who were teaching English to high school students. And you were either junior or senior high school teacher. And I ended up getting the job working there overseas for 2 years in Japan. And then I also, when I was working for the ships, when I was in my last year of university, my friend had gone in the summertime that was in my program, another girl, and she had worked there for the whole summer. So she got me in touch with the boss who does all the hiring in Miami. And I got to go for 2 weeks, and I went and talked to my professors about it and said, I have an opportunity to go work on a cruise ship. Can I write my essay early, or can I do my exams early so that I can have this opportunity to go? And they were really supportive, and both times they let me go. I went for 2 weeks at Christmas and 2 weeks at Easter. And then I went to Japan. When I came back, I was missing life working on the cruise ship. So I ended up doing a 6-month contract on the ships, and I worked with kids. There's a spot called the Fun Factory on board the cruise ship, and it's like a camp. It's like a drop-in day camp for the kids, and it's so much fun. And so I did that on and off because I got a job working with the Thames Valley School Board in London, Ontario, but it was a very competitive time, and so they had a lot of retired teachers on their supply list who took a lot of jobs away from new teachers, and then there were only 32 jobs a year, not a lot of jobs available, and there were 2,000 supply teachers competing for 32 jobs a year. So I worked back and forth between supply teaching and going on the cruise ships as well. So I probably did about 3 or 4 years working on cruise ships, but over an extended period of time of 12 years. And then I worked in Grand Cayman and for a year, but it was very expensive to live there. So I only lasted a year because I saved absolutely no money. But I had a very nice year. And then I lived in Tianjin, China, and that school downsized. So I lost my job because I was learning support at that school, and that was a new position. So they basically took that position away. And so I was left without a job. Then I moved on to Qatar and had a very difficult year because we were at a school that had just opened and it was a very disorganized school. And so I decided to leave. I knew in October that I wasn't coming back to that school. And the children were very badly behaved as well. And then I moved to Turkey for a year. But I really didn't, I was a little bit intimidated by the culture because every time I left my apartment, I was approached, and I really didn't like that. And then I came home for a year. I took a year off, and then I ended up back with in Shenzhen, China for 4 years, and now I've been in Kazakhstan for 3. That's my short version.
That works.
Yeah, wow. There's like so many. I mean, I feel like I've heard most of the places, but there was even some that I like didn't know about. That's cool.
There you go. Now you know the rest of the story.
So can you talk a little bit more about the cruise ship experience and like why you decided to do that? Why did you choose to do that? How did you get the job, etc.?
Okay. So, as I said, my friend got me in touch with the boss for the job. So when you apply for a job on the cruise ship, you have to know exactly the title of the job that you want. So you have to research what you want to do on the ship. Because if you just send a general vague resume in and don't say exactly what position you're applying for, they don't even look at it. So you have to be very specific. So I had to say, I want to work with kids in the fun factory. That's the job I want to have. And then they contacted me, and I actually had a phone interview because at Christmas time, there is a ton of children that are on the ship. It's actually the biggest, it's Easter. That's the biggest celebrated holiday. But Christmas is the second biggest holiday celebrated around the world, right? So they have a really big volume of kids come on for Christmas holidays. So we go from like a skeleton staff of about 6 to about 16 staff. So we almost like triple in size. So and then so I just did an interview on the phone, and then I had to go get you have to go get a drug test done, and you have to have they have a health paper that you have to fill in, a health form, and you have to go and get all that paperwork done. You have to pay that for yourself, and you don't get reimbursed from the company. And then they fly you to where you're meeting your ship, and they say, okay, all your paperwork's in line. We're flying you to this ship. You're going to be there from this date to this date, and and then they send you on your way. It's a free trip. It's not a fun free trip. It's 3 flights to get to Florida, or kind of thing. Whatever they can then get together because they have deals with the travel companies, right? So it's just whatever flight you get stuck on, and then my first time was pretty amazing because I got to stay overnight, and I got to come the day before the ship came in. So I was so excited. I barely slept. And I flew into Fort Lauderdale, and when I woke up really early in the morning, and I got to see all the ships sail in the morning, and they had all their lights on, and they're so beautiful when they're all lit up. And so it was like cruise ship after cruise ship after cruise ship coming in, and I could see all of them from my hotel, and I was so excited to go on. And then you get on the ship, and you have a lot of training, and you have to have a lot of safety training. Basically, everybody is trained to be a firefighter. because we have a lot of fires on the ship, and most of them are small and most of them are in the kitchen, and are doable. But if we ever had a really big fire, every staff member has to know how to put out a fire, and the different kinds of fires. And so we have a lot of safety training on board the ship when you first get there. So you don't actually get to get off the ship as much as you think you're going to. So if you do a short contract, like I have the option of having a short contract where other people don't have the options, because the kids come and go. We can be a bigger or smaller staff, right? So after you have 2 chances to do your safety training, and if you fail the second time, then you lose your job and they send you back home, and you have to pay to go back home. Yeah, so you have to pass safety, because everybody needs to know, right? And it's a big ship. It's a floating hotel. So, but after that, life gets fun, and you get to go off at different ports, and every job is different. My job, you know, I can come and go and do shorter or longer contracts. Some positions you have to do 6 months or 8 months. You don't have the option. My job, I had shift work, so I would work the morning and the afternoon, and then maybe have the evening off, or I might have the morning off and work the afternoon and the evening, or I might have the whole day off and work the evening shift. So you had different ports that you could get off at. In the different ports that you got off at, you would maybe have a morning off or an afternoon or the whole day. It depended, and you could request which one you wanted off, and it just would be staggered so that if you had Puerto Rico off one week, you wouldn't get it off the next week, kind of thing, so that everybody got a chance to get off and see that port, which was really nice. Working in the fun factory, we were in the fun factory, we're around the ship. They're divided into 4 different tier groups. So the little kids are together, I think it was 3 to 6-year-olds, and then 7 to 11-year-olds, and then all the teens together. But now we actually have 4 tiers, and I can't remember exactly what those 4 tiers are, because it's been about 12 years since I worked for them now. But it was really fun because we went all over the ship. We had scavenger hunts, art scavenger hunts, where we went around looking at different art around the ship. We did shuffleboard. We went to the sports deck and played basketball, and we were able to use the pool and have water volleyball. You know, so we used the entire ship. And the coolest thing I think is we have glass blowing on our ships now, and we got to go watch them do glass blowing. And then the kids have a competition where they draw a picture of what they would like to be blown into glass, and then they choose one of the kids' pieces that they're drawing, and they make it for them in front of us, and then they get to keep it and take it home. It is totally awesome.
That's so fun.
I know, right? Yeah. So, and everybody who's done this job absolutely loves it, and everybody who's done this job dreams about it. And we all talk about going back on ships and doing a reunion, and it never happens because we're all at different points in our life, right? Like some have kids, and you know, some are single and have jobs that they can't leave, or they don't have enough holiday time, or you know, and now the ships are just starting to travel again. So it's just not possible. We're all over the world, and it would be really nice to do, though.
Yeah, I heard you mention, I think you mentioned Puerto Rico. So I'm
did.
curious, like, what all the different like routes that you worked were, and maybe like some of the favorite ports that you got to visit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have done Alaska. I've done New York to Bermuda. I've done the Western and Eastern Caribbean. I've done the transatlantic, which was amazing because I thought it's going to be so rough because there's nothing out there to stop the water. And it was smooth and looked like ice. I couldn't believe it. It was incredible. And that's a 3.5-day trip with seeing nothing. It's pretty interesting to be out in the middle of nowhere. And I've done the Mediterranean Sea and the Baltic Sea as well.
if you were to suggest like a certain route to like a beginner, does that vary at all?
I would say the Baltic. It's really incredible. It's a smaller body of water, so than the Mediterranean Sea. So there's a lot of ships there, and the captains actually do shorter contracts because it's so exhausting for the captains because they're constantly having to maneuver around all the ships that are in the water. There's a lot of horn honking.
I can imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of close calls. I think it's very stressful for the captains. So they do a 4-year, they do a 4-month contract rather than a 6-month contract when you do Baltic Seas. It's a busy piece of water just because there's so many countries up there, right? And that's the only access to get into those countries. Jessica, you were saying about favorite ports. I think some of my favorite ports were Estonia in the Baltic and Denmark. I love Denmark. And Holland. We got to do Guernsey and Jersey. That was pretty cool. Greece, obviously, in the Mediterranean. I really loved Portugal as well. In the Caribbean, Puerto Rico is definitely my favorite. But I also loved Bermuda. Bermuda is beautiful, beautiful island.
Were you able to like save a lot of money when you worked at that, or was it kind of just like for the experience?
We were paid $3 an hour.
Okay, so no.
But is that like 24 hours? Like, are you paid like every hour you're on the ship, or it's just every hour that you're actively working?
You're paid every hour that you're actively working. And you're paid $3 an hour. It's not $3 an hour now, it's probably 5. But you're paid in cash. And so everybody in their cabin has a locker. Everybody has a locker. You're paid every 2 weeks, and you just keep it in your locker. So you have a lockbox to keep your stuff in, and you always have a roommate unless you're a manager. So I've had some crazy roommates over the past. They're all weird. And a lot of international roommates as well. I had roommates from Peru and Greece and Canada and the States mostly. My boss was from Chile. I worked with friends from Estonia and Romania and Greece. So it's pretty nice because we're pretty international, a lot of Mexicans. It's really nice. And they hire some people based on what languages they speak because we have some kids who speak different languages, right?
Do you have any, like, I don't know, because you just said you had some interesting roommates. Do you have any like fun stories or like a person that's like standing out? Don't like blast them with their name, but like somebody that stands out.
No. I had a friend who said that she swears like a trucker in her sleep, and she said it just happened every once in a while, but it happened every night. So she'd scream out in the middle of the night, "I know what you're doing up there," and start cursing away, and I'd be like, "Oh!" And then I'd realize she was sleeping, and then I would just go back to sleep. But it was pretty much every night, so it was bizarre. I had a friend who we had 4 of us in a cabin. A lot of times it depends on how busy the ship is. Sometimes we get lucky and we get to go into a passenger guest room, which is kind of nice because they're luxurious compared to what we get. And she cracked every bone in her body when she woke up in the morning, so we called her Snap, Crackle, Pop. We had another friend who actually was a staff member from the mainland in Miami office who they just thought, "Oh, well, we'll just throw you into the Fun Factory. It's such an easy job if you want to just go work on ships for a couple weeks," which it's not an easy job because you're looking after kids. And she had a alarm clock that made different animal noises to wake her up in the morning. and she would party till the crack of dawn and then come in and not be able to wake up. And she actually had to be our 5th roommate, so we had to put a mattress on the floor in between the 2 beds on the floor. So she was sleeping on the floor in the mattress, and then we would have to pick the mattress up and put it out of the way. So we had 5 people in one room. It was a lot. But we hated her alarm clock. Because she would never wake up, but we'd all wake up.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Did you just work then for all of your trips in the Fun Factory, or did you have any other jobs?
Yeah, I just worked in the Fun Factory. We had to help out with when we had to get I-95s to get off the cruise ship. When you had to go through immigration, everybody had to help with that, which is not fun because it's early in the morning and everybody's grouchy, including staff. Because it's really, so like when we went to Panama, they have to get an I-95 to get off. Oh, I've done Panama Canal as well. I'm sorry, forgot to mention.
Yeah, I'm so excited to
Mhm.
see it. Oh, you talked about like some activities you did, but like what's like a typical day of like work? What did you do?
Okay. So I get up, we wear uniforms. So if I'm working during the day, I have a day uniform. If I'm working during the night, I have a night uniform. So I put my uniform on. I have to show up 15 minutes before work. I look at the schedule of what we're doing for that day and where we're going. I have to get all my activities together into a bag. All the supplies that I need, like maybe we're playing cards or we're going to we're going to play basketball on the deck. So I need to get all my materials together. And if there's a game that I don't know how to play, we have a binder. You can look it up in the binder how to play it, and just turn the lights on and get things open for the sign-in sheet ready and stuff like that for the kids. And then when the kids come in, we have to just remind the parents to sign them in when they're little. So they have to put their name and their cabin number and things like that before they leave, and make sure that they fill it out appropriately and that they don't forget to sign something, because their cabin number is their phone number. So we need to have that in case something happens. And so then we play different activities and we move around the ship for the morning. And then sometimes we had to work the lunch shift as well. We started to open up for lunch and for dinner, and we did dinner parties and lunch parties, which they're paid if we're at port, but they're free if we're at sea. Or maybe we don't have them if we're at sea. I can't remember because it's been 15 years. But so then maybe you would work a lunch shift as well. So you would work until 1 o'clock and then you'd be off. So then you get to go have your lunch, and all our meals are free. So we get to go, I would go for breakfast before I started my shift, and then I go into the cafeteria. We have different cafeterias for different people. So there's a crew cafeteria, there's a staff cafeteria, and there's an officer cafeteria. And the food in the crew cafeteria is really spicy because it's a lot of international people from Indonesia and Malaysia and things like that. So they have a lot more fish as well, because that's more of their diet and what they eat. For us, it was more North American food. And then for officers, they would get more the stuff from the restaurants. They could order nicer things. We could order nicer things as well, but it was only it was a time when we had to work. So we couldn't order it most of the time unless we had the night off. But then I would usually go have a nap. You live on naps when you work on a cruise ship and you're doing shift work. So you would try to eat as fast as you can during your lunch so that you can go have a nap and then get up for your next shift. Or you would inhale your lunch and you would go off the ship for the afternoon and go like to a beach, or go see one of the events around the city. And we always talk to the other staff, because the staff are on a lot longer than us. The crew especially, they're on for 6 to 8 months at a time. So the crew really know the places well. So you talk to them and say, like, what's your favorite thing to do here? Where's your favorite beach? How do I take the bus to get here? Kind of thing, because the crew know where everything is. So they're the people to ask. So you befriend all those people to help you out. And then I would have to come back by a certain time I have to be back an hour before my shift. And then I have a shower and put my night uniform on and get ready for my night shift, then work my night shift. And then usually I went to go work out after I was on my night shift. And then we go to the crew bar for a couple hours and then go to bed and start all over again.
Nice. I was gonna say, what would happen if someone like went out, you know, you go out to the port and stuff and you lost track of time and you missed the boat? Like, do they check for that or what? You're just screwed?
Yeah. You have a crew badge, and so when you go on and off the ship, you clock in and you clock out. It's just a scanner.
Okay.
And so they know who's off the ship and who's on. They do it for the guests as well.
Okay.
So we know who's on and off the ship. The security knows. And if there's a lot of people missing, they'll wait. And if there's a few people missing, they leave. So if it's like an entire bus from a tour and they haven't got back yet, they'll wait for you.
Yeah.
But if it's just 2 staff, they'll leave. And people have missed the ship before.
Yeah.
I accidentally, when we were in Bermuda, I was visiting a friend, and I heard the motor start up, and I was like, oh, you know, because they were docked, and when we did Bermuda, the one cruise ship would be in the one port and we'd be in the other, and then we would meet up and be in the same port, and then we would go to the other port the second day. So we did 2 days in one and 1 day in the other, and they would do 1 day in one and 2 days in the other. They'd do the opposite, but we had 1 day where both our ships met up. So we had like extra friends from the other ship, right? So we'd meet up with them. And I was on the ship too long and lost track of time and ended up going to the other port in Bermuda, which luckily I'm still in the same country, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up having to stay overnight and go back the next morning in a taxi to go back to the other port to do my shift. But luckily I didn't work until the afternoon.
Okay. So you didn't have,
Yeah.
You didn't really mess it up.
No, I didn't mess up too bad. But we have had friends miss the ship, and you're responsible. You have to fly and meet the ship in the next port. So you're responsible for all this stuff. Yeah. And it's the same with the guests. The guests, if they miss the ship, same thing. You have to fly to the next port, and you're responsible for that.
Crazy.
Wow. We're gonna transition in a second away from the cruise part, but before we do, I just want to ask if there's anything else you want to share or any other stories about it, and then like if there's any advice you have for anyone if they're interested in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was kind of like 3 questions in one, but I believe in you.
How you roll. I would say if you are even considering this, make sure you go and you do it, because it's something you won't regret, but you'll regret if you don't go and do it. It's definitely not for everyone. There are days where you're on the ship and you can't get off, especially the Panama Canal. There's only 4.5 stops in 2 weeks. So if you're a claustrophobic person, I would not recommend this for you. I got quite motion sick on the ship, but the good thing is that the drugs are free for crew. So if you get sick or if you get hurt, all the medical is covered on the ship, and they'll even take you off the ship if you need day surgery or whatever. They'll take care of you. So I worked for Celebrity Cruise Lines. I can't speak for the other cruise lines. I don't know what they're like. I've only worked for one company. So, but I just know my company, right? But you're very well taken care of, I think, in my opinion. And it's a really wonderful experience, and it's quite addictive. Once you've done it once, you want to do it again and again. And it's a great way to see the world for really cheap. I mean, you're not paid well in my position, but there are other positions on the ship that pay much better. So you just have to do a lot of research for that. But I would definitely say if you're even considering it, it's definitely a job you want to do.
What was the transition like then? Because that was like your main experience in teaching, I assume. So then to like a traditional classroom setting, how did that work?
Well, I had only done a month on ships, right? So actually I did a month in Alaska before I moved to Japan as well. So I had done 2 months, and then I went and lived in Japan. And that was a very different experience. Working for the JET program, again, was a really wonderful company to work for as well. You're hired by the embassy to work for the local board of education. And so you have a base school, and you can usually walk to that school, and that school is in the city that you live. And you check in into that school when there's exams going on at other schools. You would go to your base school instead of going to the other schools that you would regularly go to. And I worked at about 9 different schools in the 2 years that I was there, and I lived in 2 different cities. I transferred to a bigger city my second year. So you would take the bus, or you would take a train, or you would have to take a train and then walk, or you would get picked up by a staff member to take you the rest of the way to school. But most of the schools are really close to transportation, so it wasn't a big deal to get there in the morning. It was just a matter of trying to figure out how to get to each school that you worked at. I've lost my train of thought.
So why, or like, I guess when and why did you, because you ended up being on the cruise ship for like a 6-month stint, right? Like, why did you decide to not continue doing that and transition into like international teaching?
Because the pay, I mean, the pay wasn't great. I mean, it was cash, which was good, and I was paid in American money. But yeah, it wasn't, it's not a career job, you know, unless you're an officer or captain or doctor or something like that, that's paying well on the ship. It's kind of an in-between career job, right? It's not a full-time, you know, you don't want to be doing this job at 50. So, you know, I went on ships when I was 29 and did this. But I wanted to be full-time, but the company that I was hired with for teaching just had too many staff members competing. And our school board tends to be who you know, not what you know. And so there's a lot of favoritism as far as who they're going to hire. So basically, they already have picked out who they want to hire, and it's a friend of a friend's neighbor's cousin, you know, kind of thing. So our school board doesn't really hire fairly. And so I just got frustrated with it. And so that's why I decided to go back overseas. I had really liked working overseas in Japan, but that was one of those deals where you got your ticket there and you got your ticket home. So if you wanted to come home in between, you really couldn't. And you only got 40 days holiday, so you could decide when you wanted to, but there were certain times where you couldn't go. So you had to ask your schools, is it okay if I go on a holiday at this time? And they would either tell you yes or no. And so that's how you got to know when you got your 40 days. And you didn't get your 40 days consecutively. You got them in like a week or 2 weeks span of time. In Japan, the schools are not ever closed. There's only 3 weeks in the whole year that the schools are actually locked and you can't get in. Even when school's not going on in Japan, they're still doing extracurricular activities like sports teams, or they're doing tutoring, or they're doing makeup tests or something like this. So kids are still coming into the school, even though the school is technically closed, it's not. So I was wined and dined when I moved to Grand Cayman. I had mostly Canadian and American kids, and the parents were wonderful because it's a small island. You were friends with the parents and you hung out with the parents. I was invited to everybody's birthday, and I went to every single birthday party because it was something that I couldn't experience in Canada. You would never be invited into a student's home in Canada for a birthday party. So I thought, you know what, this is an opportunity that I might never get again, and I never have. So I'm really glad I took that opportunity, and I became very good friends with parents because of that. You know, because I got to see them outside of school, and I would bump into them at a restaurant, or at the grocery store, you know, because there's only so many restaurants and everybody lives kind of in the same area where the school is. So it was a really unique experience. You know, they paid for my plane ticket to get back home to Canada because that wasn't part of my package. I only got a job when I worked for my school in Cayman. So I didn't get my flights, I didn't get my housing. You know, I had medical coverage, but that was about it. So it wasn't a good package, but I really wanted to live in the Caribbean. But once I lived in the Caribbean, I realized that it's too hot for me and I need seasons. So, and it was very expensive because the only thing they grew on the island was papaya, which is the only fruit I don't like. And everything is flown in, so all the fruit goes rotten within like 2 to 3 days of buying it. So it was not the life for me. So I decided to go back home, try and get in full time again. Still couldn't get in full time. Went back on cruise ships and kind of did this back and forth for quite a while. So even now it'd be nice if I decide that I want to take a year off school. I could go back and work on a cruise ship for 6 months just for fun, you know. And I'd have a free place to stay. I'd have a flight to get to the ship. Free food, free accommodation. I get to travel the world. Now the cruise ships go to Australia, Asia, and those are places that it wasn't going to before. I haven't done South America. I would like to do that. I'd like to go around the tip of Chile and go to Argentina and the Galapagos Islands. So our cruise ship goes pretty much everywhere now. And I didn't get to do Hawaii. So there's lots of cruises I would like to do. But again, I would need to reapply because I haven't worked for them in 15 years. And I would have to do their medical, which is a $200 thing that you don't get back, and the drug tests. So, and I've looked into it, but I haven't gone back, but maybe next year.
That's cool. So you talked about teaching in Canada like a little bit, or attempting to find a job there. And I selfishly just have questions about like if they accept expats, or like what is the general situation with teaching in Canada right now, even for yourself?
You know, I haven't even looked into teaching in Canada lately, but even my cousin, like my cousin is a high school teacher, and she worked in Orangeville, which is outside of Toronto, and she was there for 7 to 9 years. And the way it works in Ontario, which is ridiculous, is that when you move from one county to another, you lose your seniority. So even though my cousin had 7 to 9 years of experience teaching full-time, because she's a science math teacher in high school, they took that as nothing when she went to Thames Valley as well. Same for me. I've been teaching overseas. I think this is my 11th year teaching overseas. If I go home, this 11 years of teaching overseas, it counts for nothing because I haven't done my teaching in Canada. I've done my teaching overseas, and they don't credit it as teaching. So I would start at 0 years of teaching if I got hired back home. I did not enjoy teaching at home. I ran into a lot of problems with administration not backing me up or not even seeing me the whole day while I was supply teaching. I had a lot of troubled children. I had little kids swearing at me in kindergarten. I had kids running in the outside at recess, beating each other up. They were two sisters that were mad at each other, and I had to pull the other kid off the other kid. You know, so I wore my running shoes whenever I taught at that school because I knew there were going to be fights. You know, there are very few ideal schools to work at in Canada. I did a long-term occasional at one school where, you know, a lot of these kids, their parents are in jail, or they're prostitutes, or they're selling drugs. You know, and school is the only safe place, happy place for them. You know, I actually don't usually do this, but I would actually call parents at home near dinner time and say, I'm sorry for bothering you, but I just wanted to tell you what a great day your kid had, because I just thought there were so few opportunities for these kids that I need to focus on the positive of what happened with this kid. I remember there was one kid that his name was Andreas, and they used to tease him and say, why don't you go Andreas yourself? You know, and they were really mean to this kid. You know, he was Colombian, and he was such a sweet kid. And, you know, and I called his parents and said, you know, this has been happening to this kid at school. He's being teased, but, you know, I want you to be really proud of him because he stuck up for himself, you know, and stuck up to the bullies and said, you know, like, just leave me alone. Like, that's not funny anymore, you know, kind of thing. And just didn't let them get the best of him, you know, kind of thing. And I was like, we need to celebrate this, you know, because you've got a really good kid. So, and the parents were really grateful that I called them, but that's the only school I've done that at because it was just such a tough school. And every day the administration, the director, the principal would say, are you coming in tomorrow? Are you coming in tomorrow? Because she knew I had a really tough class. And it was a long-term occasional that I was covering for a teacher that had, she had an operation. And so she needed time off. And so I took over her class for 6 weeks. And they were so tough. They were grade 4. But, they, you know, they turned out to be great kids in the end. You know, you just had to get to know them. But it was like dangerous minds when I first went in. Like, what am I doing? You know, but I was so desperate for hours and to teach that I was willing to take anything they'd give me. You know, and that's what all the new teachers are experiencing that are coming into teaching. And it's like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? And I'm like, I didn't enjoy my experiences in Canada. I went up north and taught on a reserve. My house was broken into. All my things were stolen and broken. They ate food out of my fridge. They went through my dirty clothes and went and hung my underwear out in the trees in the backyard. You know, like, it's very invasive. I lasted 30 days of teaching there. And they said, I went and talked to the band and they said, thank you for staying as long as you did. You know, like, I've had really horrible experiences teaching in Canada. So why would I ever want to come back, right? I don't think they hire expats. I think it's only Canadian people. I think you have to be a Canadian citizen to even get on the board. And in order to get a job teaching in Canada, you can't just get a job teaching full time. You have to get on the supply list first. So my cousin, when she transferred to Thames Valley School Board, she couldn't even get in. So she ended up going to her old high school that she taught at and going in the back door and saying, can I volunteer? You know, I graduated from this school and I need a job and I can't even get on the supply list. So that helped her to get onto the supply list. And then she got like a quarter day job. So she went in for a quarter of the day and taught like 2 lessons a day or something silly. And then she went to like a half day the next year with coaching. And then she finally got in full time. But it's just so hard to get into teaching in Ontario that a lot of teachers get frustrated and leave. So that's why you have a lot of Canadian teachers teaching overseas, because of the frustration of trying to get in. You know, and people have student loans that they need to pay off. So you need a full-time job. And teaching is not a guaranteed full-time job. And I mean, after 7 years of not getting in, it's like, I'm done waiting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can clearly see why you ended up like transitioning to teaching abroad. But what, I guess, to spin it on like the positive end, what are some reasons that you've stuck with teaching overseas and that you've stayed at this job for, you said, like 11 years teaching abroad?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is that the parents collaborate and work with you rather than against you. I've made some amazing friends with the parents, which is unheard of in the North American teaching system. You're never friends with the parents. And the respect that I've gotten overseas versus being at home, the lack of respect at home was just ridiculous. You know, you want what's best for that child just like the parent does. You want that child to be successful. And I mean, that's why we try to tell the parents, you know, this is what I need from you at home. And I have done most of my overseas teaching career in Asia. and just the Asian community in general has been a very positive experience of, getting to know me, taking me out for dinner, going out with me to art museums, showing me their city, places I would never see on my own, getting to know the culture. My CT, who is my assistant in my classroom, her first day off at the end of the school year, she took me out for lunch, and it made me cry because I thought I was so overwhelmed with how selfless that was, to spend her first day off taking me out for lunch to thank me for being her teacher for the year and for working together. And, I went to visit her when she moved to Chengdu, and I stayed with her and her baby and her husband. And we stayed in the countryside, and it was just really beautiful to experience that from a local person, that's from China. And just the friendships I've made, overseas, and having that connection, and then all the international teachers that move on to different places. I think my passion for teaching international people came from working on the cruise ship, because when you work on the cruise ship, I'm teaching kids from all over, and I'm not teaching them. I'm playing games with them and whatever, but the games are how a lot of kids learn. So, I think living overseas has been just such a wonderful experience, and living in different kinds of homes and different communities and different countries, and learning, the local language and eating the local foods, and, experiencing all these different cities around the world. It's interesting because my neighbor, I grew up on a turkey farm, believe it or not. And my neighbor said to me, did you ever think that little girl who grew up on a turkey farm was going to end up in all of these massive cities around the world? And I had no idea that this is what I was going to end up doing. I knew I always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know this is what my teaching was going to be.
That's great. That's really inspiring, I think, for us to hear right now, especially, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like I've been so hard on myself the last 6 months of and I'm sure a lot of it is COVID too, but why am I doing this? I'm going to have to leave my friends and family again. And this isn't teaching internationally when I'm just staring at a computer. It just seems pointless, but there are definitely reasons to stay and reasons to enjoy it.
For sure. Yeah. I totally prefer living overseas teaching to teaching at home. A lot of my friends who are teachers couldn't believe that I was still a teacher after all the experiences I had in Canada. So, and generally overseas, I've had really good experiences. The kids have been wonderful, and it's nice to be teaching them English as well as teaching them, subjects, and see the progression of their English. And I'm still in touch with a lot of my students, that I've taught over the years, and now they're all grown up, and, some are married, especially my Japanese, because they were high school kids, and some of them were in their senior year of high school. So it's really interesting to see where their life went, and, see their careers as well.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't do that with a North American kid, right?
That always surprises me. My first time that a kid was like, oh, I'm inviting you to my birthday party, or I saw them at the mall and I was having a beer and I was like, oh my gosh, should I hide it? And everyone else is just relaxed and they're like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Your time off is your time off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a person too, outside of your job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not perfect, but try to be the best person you can be, like everybody else, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Before we start to wrap this up, is there anything else you want to share, or advice for new teachers or incoming international teachers, or just for getting through this like weird virtual teaching experience, because I mean, I need the advice.
I would say try to teach overseas at least 1 year of your career, because I think once you do it again, it's an addictive thing. Once you've done it once, you want to do it again. When you live overseas, I would say try to hang out with the locals as much as you can so that you get to experience as much of the culture as you can. For getting through the phenomena we're going through, I would say make sure that you take time for yourself and that you pamper yourself, and do things that you love and enjoy. I started this a long time ago, doing a me day where you just spend the day by yourself doing the things that you love so that you keep yourself happy. Because right now we're so overworked and so exhausted. Our schedules are all over the place. We're working every day. You know, and even when we're not working, we're thinking about working. So just taking that mental break for yourself and doing something to do that self-care, you know, so that you don't get exhausted. For sure.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to do that. It's so weird with all the different schedules. And I've heard that teaching in the States, you know, if they're doing like a hybrid class or something where they would go to school some days and other days not, I can't imagine having multiple schedules like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my nephew's doing that right now in Canada. They go like every other day, and then the next week they go every other day that they didn't go the week before. And then one of my friends, her kids are going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Thursday, Friday. This is what they're doing in Thames Valley right now. It's my best friend's kids. And then they're only doing one subject. So they have one subject every day, all day for 3 days in a row. And then they have homework for those 2 days in just that subject. It's insane.
Oh my God.
That's what they're doing for high school right now.
That's crazy.
So you're just doing one
Wow.
subject all day long. I can't imagine how exhausted you'd be.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not getting a break, right? You're just learning that one topic.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know, but there's so many different systems out there right now, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways of teaching.
Yeah.
We're giving people the option of teaching, of learning online or coming to school. I've got 6 of my kids coming. One kid is online, and I honestly think she's gonna be online the rest of the year. I don't think the parents feel comfortable, and I'm totally fine with that. But I mean, it's so exhausting because I mean, if I'm doing it for one, I might as well be doing it for the other 6, you know, because I still have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
doing online and face-to-face has been exhausting, and everybody's walking around like zombies. And you know, I said to my dad, you know, I'm exhausted all the time, so I'm not doing stuff, and I'm grumpy. So now I'm just going to be exhausted all the time, and I'm just going to do stuff, and I'm just going to be tired. I'm just going to be tired all the time, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I'm not going to have a life.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's all you
I
can
mean,
do.
yeah.
We're just trying to survive. We're not trying to build anything new, create anything amazing.
Yeah.
Just like survive this year, and hopefully in 1 year things can be relatively normal or somewhat the same as they were before.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to teach next year. Like if it's going to be like this, then I'm going to take a couple of years off. I want to, I might go back on cruise ships just for a break. I might teach online. I don't know, but I mean, I think a lot of teachers are going to need a break after this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Definitely.
yeah, because it's been so exhausting. And
Yeah.
and not gratitude for it, you know, not enough.
There's Yeah, and there's a long haul left till the end of this school year. We're just getting started.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. And then on our school break, we can't even leave the country.
Yeah. Could you travel within the country maybe? Not that
Yes.
you'd want to,
Yeah.
but maybe.
Yeah. We're going to go to Shymkent. And what's the name of that other place, Jessica, that you went to?
Turkestan. Not be
Turkestan.
confused with
Oh
Turkmenistan.
my God.
Turkestan,
So
the
many times
city.
people
Like,
have told me about
Just-
Turkestan.
I know, right? It's like, no, we can't cross the border. Why are we going there? We're not going there. We're going this way.
Turkmenistan is locked, so you will not get there for quite a while.
And Almaty's locked too. I mean, you need special permission papers to get in right now. So we had a friend who's had a family member pass away, and she had to go home. And I mean, it was such a nightmare trying to get back here. But you know, she finally got back, and she's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to travel like this.
Yeah.
So if this is the way that we're going to travel, going on a cruise ship would be ultimate, you know, because I would do that awful flight to get to wherever the ship is, and then I could just travel on the ship, right?
Yeah, and you stay in one boat, one place relatively.
Yeah, well, and we transition, right? So depending on when I would get on the ship, if I got on in the summer or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, giving your time and advice. It's been really fun.
For inviting me.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot about cruise ship life. And again, I like Laura said, I appreciate your advice and just extra reminders to take care of ourselves, because sometimes it's hard to think about that when you're thinking about 100 things you have to do.
Right, for sure.
So if anyone is listening and you have questions or suggestions for us, you can let us know either in the YouTube comments or on our Instagram at Nomads Podcast.
Yep, we'll be posting extra clips, pictures, reminders about upcoming episodes on the Instagram. So thanks for listening from wherever in the world you are.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.